brand new morning, correct?
It's Brina, brand new morning with Facebook drama, but we are here no matter what, right?
Yes. So yeah, I was praying. I was like, okay, God, I hope that comes on. Otherwise, of course, we had a backup plan. Since we have such an amazing guest to announce today. But before that, I just want to make sure that we say thank you for being here. Everyone, we
Welcome.
appreciate you. So thanks for
Welcome. Yes. Thanks for your support. I know Coach Déa is also she's our guest today. I just said it already. She is also has her tribe. And before that, and I know this is going to be a great interview and conversation with Coach Déa. We also want to emphasize our programs and our systems and our events. What is one you're excited about, Tammy? A video launched out yesterday. It's a trip to
Barbados, right? So, I'm excited
Barbados.
because I've been working on reels and different things for that trip. So I'm so excited because our retreats, our adventures are not like anybody else's. It's not like you're just going to go on vacation. No, this is with us. We have personalized sessions already planned, so many things, but plus you get so much time to experience things on your own as well. So I'm excited. Aren't you?
I am excited because other than also an amazing destination, it's like I think of destination weddings and things like that. I also think of destination retreats because it's going to be an adventure and an experience for personal development. And that is my passion here. Outdoors combined with personal development, combined with self-guided amenities and activities is just what I want to sign up for. And I'm sure you are ready to sign up for that. What we want you to do is just schedule a discovery call. We can add that link somewhere here, right, Tammy? Like the Calendly.
Yes.
So you can call, learn more about what it's about and know if we are a good fit for each other. So we can just start packing our bags to go to Barbados coming up soon in May, right, Tammy?
Yes, and of course you can go on our website, which gives you all the links to, and you'll also see the other retreats and adventures we have coming up, which I'll be adding more here in the next week or so. I have several that I need to add on already, so
it's gonna be amazing. So are we ready for
now
our guest?
we are. So I met our next guest through a good mutual friend, Lisa Rankin. So,
Thanks,
and
Lisa.
you know what? Yes, and what a blessing to meet Déa. She is just an amazing lady and has done so many things. So I can't wait for everyone else to meet her, and we're gonna find out more about her. So
There you go.
welcome,
Here
Déa.
she is.
So
Beautiful being. I know she
your
dances.
sound
The little I know about her is like, I know she dances. I know she's also passionate about relationships, passionate about freedom, like unlocking freedom in nature,
singer.
and a lot of things. So welcome. How are you?
Thank you for having me. How are you, ladies?
We're great. We're happy to be here. Live.
So am I. So am I. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, I am as well. So, for those that don't know where you're from, do you want to give us a little bit of a background, please?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Brazil, and I've been here in the United States for, oh gosh, over 40 years. When I think about the timeline, it's been incredible. So I was a professional dancer for many years. I arrived in the United States at age 19 with a scholarship with the Joffrey Ballet, later had a scholarship with Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, then got into ballroom, modern dance, and worked in a modern dance company for about 13 years. It was a director from China who had a company based in Boston, but he also had a small ensemble here in New York City. So that's where I stayed and worked with for many years and ended up working in an ELC program, English, ESL program, English as a second language, teaching in a Chinese speaking with kids who spoke Chinese. We're actually from China that were in downtown Manhattan. So we taught them how to speak English through dance. And I did that program for many years. We got a lot of grants and we would perform in the city a lot. So that's how I started right there.
That's
So a
an
little bit of the
amazing
background outside
program.
of being a coach. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was interesting, right? Coming from another country, teaching a program, it's English as a second language. So what we would do sometimes was he would say, okay, these are the words in English. They say them in Portuguese, which is my native language, and then we're going to translate it to English. And then we would show dance movements and basic punching, kicking, right, left, turn, jump, things like that. So it was very rewarding. It was fun. It was fun.
Wow, that's an interesting program. So, but it's great because then it's how you use an art to communicate.
Absolutely. And later went into singing. I was always in the arts. My twin sister played classical guitar. My older sister used to write music, and we did sing when we were younger. So I play a little bit of guitar and a little bit of piano, and I compose Christian music as well. So it just went into singing, worked with a rock and roll band for 11 years, was a local band. We did fundraisers and worked at a local place here near where I live. And I did that for 11 years, believe it or not, all while being a mom of five. Don't know. I don't know how I did it. I'm a mom of five and a grandmother. And so I really, it's been an interesting journey for me. I've done a lot of things I enjoy. I've always been into personal development since the age of 16. And I was introduced to it very early on by my mother. And, became very passionate about charity, understanding that charity is about a mindset. You give because you've been given. It's not about wanting anything out of it or in return. Of course, got a lot out of it personally in terms of, just my heart feeling fuller and wider, and just being looking at the world from a perspective of being from another country, living in this country. I think I appreciated things from a different place anyway. Um, and then just growing into doing this that I'm doing right now, which is basically something that came out of my personal experiences with relationships, and then my own um, quest for what happened. Why was I divorced twice? Why didn't it work? Why was I always encountering these relationships in such way that left me depleted, unresourced? And I thought, this sure isn't the way it's supposed to be. So when I came into the opportunity to find out what it was, I just signed up for a couple of different courses, got a diploma in marriage and family counseling. And I started to think, wow, this is no wonder it didn't work. Right. And then I thought, what if other people needed to know this? Because we get courses for everything, but there was no course in relationships. I think it should be a part of development. It should have been taught in schools. We should be able to learn how to communicate in a healthy way. I think everyone communicates, but definitely not in a healthy way, most people. And I also realized in this process, was very curious about the healing process. How do we take care of the pain? Because a lot of people are engaging in relationships in all areas, not just with a partner, but with our coworkers, family members. Most of us are really tapping into those relationships from a place of trauma. We come in with baggage, we put on the trauma backpack on, and we go on throughout our day. And that really impacts the way we engage with people. So I ended up getting a certification in trauma healing. I did Kingdom School of Ministry with Dr. Cindy Trim. That was probably one of the hardest courses that I've ever taken, but it was definitely worth it. And I think it broadened my perspective of what kingdom principles are, as well as where it placed me with my faith. And it created a different space to approach my coaching, which is I am not limited to people that are Christians. I opened up my life, my experiences, and my knowledge to everyone. Same thing with the podcast. Love most the podcast with Déa was about that. It was about including everyone who had a product, a service, a voice. I wanted to hear it. And every time I engaged with someone, I felt enriched. My faith was deepened. My perspective of humanity was deepened. I had a bigger appreciation for even where I came from. So it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Lots of things that resonate here, Coach Déa, and I appreciate your story and all that. I am also, I don't know if to call it a different country because it's still a part of the United States, but it's Puerto Rico in the Caribbean, speaking Spanish my whole life and learning English. Supposedly when I got here, it's like, ooh, I thought I knew English, but then hearing the native speak super fast, etc., with the Southern Texas accent was a new thing for me. And up until this day, I still have a close relationship with ESL programs and teaching actually English to Spanish speakers. And it's just such a beautiful work, Christianism is part of Tammy's and my life too. And knowing that you learned those kingdom principles in the School of Ministry is just so amazing. So about your relationships, what was the biggest aha moment? Like, oh, when, because I remember you saying like, oh, no wonder it didn't work. What was the part that you basically own? Like you own like, oh, and without, of course, sharing details that, but it's just a principle that you think, wow, if more humans, more people realize X, Y, Z, then their relationship will be better according to what you learned.
Absolutely. That's a great question, by the way. And I'm so glad you asked because it's one of the things that I work with most when I'm trying to get people to the place to find themselves. So my whole thing was my aha moment was answering the question, what was my role in my pain? And it wasn't easy to answer it at first. I had to think about that didn't have anything to do with blame. It had to do with the way that I either subconsciously or consciously chose to to take part, how to take part, something that I did or didn't do at the time that enabled that situation or made it go longer. So for me, it was realizing that I was a professional hope junkie. I love that word.
What
I
does that
became
mean?
a hope junkie.
What does
And
that
being a
look like?
so
What?
being a hope junkie looks like this. You think you're sticking with something, but you're stuck with something. Okay. You think
Got
like, I'm
it.
gonna stick with
I
this,
love it.
stick with this, and then before you realize that you're really stuck with something and you're entangled and you don't have a way to get out. Now, being that I obviously I don't want to downplay this. Obviously, for people who are married and have children, you will understand how difficult it is to justify for taking care of you when you're taking care of others. And I think that's a part of it. However, I think that throughout the different seasons over the years that I could have made a different choice, or at least chose to look at it from a different perspective. I was just in the presence of my perception, meaning it was what it meant to me, the story that I had about it. For example, believing that everything that was going wrong with the relationship was my fault, that I could have been better, different, that I wasn't enough, and that wasn't what was going on. You know, years later, I found out that there was more of a my partner, my husband was broken. Now my ex-husband was a broken person that came from his own difficulties, had his own set of traumas. And I never was in the presence of that while going through my own pain in the marriage, right? And the beauty about it is that acknowledging my role in my pain made me take responsibility for my healing. You see, we can't be responsible for our healing until we let go of what was done to us, but what is happening in us. And in that process, I was crumbling. I became depressed. I had PTSD. I became obsessed with things that weren't even things, were now things. You know what I mean? And so for me, it was that moment that when I got to my lowest point, answering the question, what was my role in my pain, made me realize, you know what? I want a different life. And I really didn't know what that meant at the time, but it was a starting point. So if the biggest thing for me was understanding what that was, made me also walk a different walk going forward, understanding that I have the power to control how I take part. I don't have control over anything else. So that was a beautiful moment for me. It was definitely a point of a starting point for a type of healing that propelled me into my calling. And I think this is why I got to become a coach because of that realization.
But then let me see if I understand it right. So what was my role in my pain when you wanted to take full responsibility of what was going on in the relationships and thinking
Mm.
that you were the problem and without realizing that it takes two in especially in a marriage or in a couple's relationship, right? That when you realize, okay, I'm flawed. I have all these imperfections, so it's all me, me, me. And then you that shifted when you realize, well, there's two components in this equation. There's two there's two factors here, and then you realize that, or is that when you kind of realize that wait a minute, I should not carry the whole weight of this situation or this relationship?
Right. So yeah, so it wasn't really so much about putting blame on who did what and who
Hmm.
was what. It was more about understanding that, first of all, what played a big part in the way that I took part in the relationship, enabling things to continue in the way that they
Got
did.
it.
It had to do with my foundational core values. So for example, and let me see if I can situate this in the right way. So let's say that family is a big core value for me, right? That's having a family, being stable, having this stability. If those things are important to a person as it was to me, then you put them first. You put them before your feelings, you put them before your integrity, before your dignity, before your, you know what I mean, before a community. So what happens is valuing those things made me stick with it. I don't want to have a broken family. I don't want to have this and this and this. Meanwhile, there were other issues going on with my partner, and he's making his own decisions about how to live his life. Well, because of those core values, those became a weapon against me. I decided to stick with something that I shouldn't have had to stick with. I became stuck. I became a victim of someone else's decision. So my role in my pain was that I was not able to voice that. I became complacent. I wasn't able to fight for the right things. Now, surely I expressed how it made me feel, but I think a lot of women, and I'm not alone in this, a lot of us, especially if you have children and have things that are part of a relationship that's, a marriage that is in paper, and you have the life insurance and the medical insurance, and you got to take the kids and this and that, and you don't have the autonomy, financial autonomy at the time, it does keep you back. It does hold you back. You think, I mean, I work with people all the time. They're like, well, I don't know what the consequences of being on my own would be. What would it be like? Well, we don't know. You have to go through it. So it's not like you can pre-decide. And some people not having access to certain things like financials, which is really important when you are on your own, we hold back. And so instead of, we think we're sticking with it for the very foundational core values that are important to us, but in fact, we're trapping ourselves in a situation. And it's not and this, by the way, I'm saying this in this way, and I want to actually take the opportunity to honor my ex-husband and my partner, who is a wonderful provider, is a wonderful provider and father. When I speak about the dynamics of a relationship with a client, I always make sure to point out your husband may very well be a good man and a good person. We're not bashing the individual. We're just acknowledging that in the dynamics of marriage, people can't show up the right way sometimes. The role in his pain could have been, a lack of something from trauma or past relationships. Mine was being complacent and being a hope junkie, thinking that by sticking with it, I was honoring something that I was actually violating. I was allowing certain things to take place that violated the very core value of what a family needed to be, right? It was what was meant for me and imparted to me. And it's not uncommon. Foundational core values end up interfering because we think that for example, the core value of compassion, the core value of service, we want to help everybody even when we're not resourced, because that's what we learned. We don't say no to someone. If someone is in distress, I would love to help someone who's in distress, but if I'm stressed out, I'm not going to do it. Most of us don't stop ourselves at that. What do they say? If you are on a plane, not on a plane, and there is a situation, an emergency situation, me as a mother automatically would have turned to my kids and put their masks on. They say not to do that because you will run out of air before you finish helping them. So put your mask on first, let them struggle for a little bit. Then you help them and your fellow passengers. Most of us are not putting our masks on, and this is not pun intended because we know we have the whole pandemic thing. That's another story. But as a metaphor for what we need to be, how we live, is one, the life you want your kids to live. That's what happened to me. I realized I don't want my kids to watch me be in contempt, be unhappy, be dissatisfied, not be in a season of what was I here to do, right? Overlooking my own mission here in life, which wasn't in place yet. Reason being, two of my kids were younger, right? And so we as women, as we know, we have many seasons of life. And I think the foundational core values also shift in those times. Some core values are more important to honor when your kids are little. As they get older, more independent, than other core values are front and center. And I was at the very season to gauge how were my core values going to impact me and allow me to move forward. So that was definitely a realization. And it wasn't a question that was easy to answer, by the way. When my coach at the time said, "What was your role in your pain?" It wasn't those exact words. He actually said it. We train people to treat us the way they do. And I thought, what? That can't be possible. But it's true. I didn't understand it at first because I thought, how did I train someone to hurt me, to do something that was humiliating or disrespectful, something that affected, it infringed with my dignity and integrity. Then I understood it later what it meant. You know, it took me a long time to understand the answer to how to answer that question, but definitely was a turning point. You know, I think that our pain can be turned into power and purpose. Mine did. I think my own pain propelled me straight into my calling. And I didn't even know. I
Well,
didn't even know I was going to
and we
become a
always
coach.
have the choice to make those changes, and we just don't always realize it. And I find that a lot of times our childhoods trigger different things in relationships. So you are being an example for your own kids
Mhm.
and grandkids and anybody else is watching. And it's not even just the relationships in a marriage; it can be with friends as well. And people don't realize it. And it's like you said, when you're doing something, learning, it's like I used to do marriage mentoring. The things that you learn when you're even doing that, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a red flag. you know.
Yeah, it
So
definitely created a, it created a sense of the whole experience created a sense of self. I was stronger, standing stronger by myself. And for the first time feeling that, you know, the hardest thing was to feel lonely when you were with someone. And
Mm.
then now being alone and feeling happy and whole and healthy, that was so valuable to me. It was definitely, there was a shift, you know, taking responsibility for my own healing was definitely something that was life changing. And of course, I wanted to point out that not everyone knows what that is. I didn't. When I came to the point where I needed to do that, it wasn't like I woke up and said, "Oh, okay, today I'm gonna figure out a way to heal." I didn't even know the healing was going
The
on. I was still in
process.
my pain, you know. I was still in my pain. So I heard a Pastor Kim Jones say, "Out of the feeling into the healing," you know. So I was like, "How do I put my feelings aside?" It was so difficult. But here's one thing that was very powerful. I wanted to change. I just didn't know how.
Mhm.
And I think when we declare that, when mine didn't sound like that either, it was like, I just want a different life. Just by saying that, I shifted into that space. And before I knew, books, videos, posts, I started seeing things, hearing conversations, and then I would run into someone and they would share that a friend of theirs went through it. And I started to find myself in those books, videos, and stories of people and just said, I'm definitely not where I was. I can hear better now. I can see, oh, yeah, yeah, I get that now. You see, and little by little, I took initiative to take care of myself. And if it's okay, can I share what I call self-care, which is very vital to healing, what those four things are that helped me.
I
So,
want to hear, I want definitely want to hear that. I would just want to make comments here on Aiki. She's watching live and she's just
okay.
saying, preach it louder for the people in the back. And she's saying that she thinks that absolutely do is sad but true when we don't set boundaries and or don't enforce them, then we sadly allow things to happen inadvertently. I also feel that our traumas and small and large will chart the course of action. She also says that she's proud of you and all that come through and how you share your healing with others, inspiring others to take those steps. And she says she loves the saying, she's not there yet, but she is on her way. I love the saying, out of the feeling, and that pastor that says, out of the feeling and into the healing. And with the self-care coming up soon, I know you're very, very excited to share that, Coach Day. I also want to ask a question about those people that are where you were, that are they're jeopardizing is a word that I also can say, jeopardizing those core values or sacrificing the bigger picture for what seemingly seems correct, like, yeah, keeping the family together, but yet they're jeopardizing or their happiness and wholesomeness is at risk, and they're sacrificing that for whenever that is going to come later when the kids grow or whatever, and they're not seeing the dichotomy in the better good for the, I don't know what to, what to say, their sacrifice they're making.
And I hear you, and I like that question because here's the thing: if we're not looking at what's happening in us, and what I mean in us, I'm talking about at the core of us. Okay, We are overlooking not only what's in store for us, but our mission here as souls. I believe that we come here to earth with a mission. All of us have a mission. For those of us who even have the thought that we could be elsewhere, meaning in a better place, that's because there is a better place. Okay. So we can't sacrifice that. We need to continue to honor those core values from a place of value, not from a place of longing. You see, if we connect, if we are doing those things out of lack and we're living by default, it's not a good life. And you will know the difference. If you pay attention to your body, I guarantee you that everyone who's going through something that is not meant for them, they'll know it in here, inside of them, in their gut, in their here, in their heart, or it'll feel like off. It'll feel like something is not quite the way it's supposed to be. When the core values are used in the right manner, it feels good. If you help someone on a day that maybe you may not be 100%, but you felt like you needed to help that person. When you're done helping that person, if the core value was executed, and it happens on a subconscious level, of course, we're not thinking what core value I'm using right now, but it does, it's in us already. But when it works the right way, you feel good about it. But if it's done in the way that it depleted you and left you unresourced, you will know immediately. You will feel resentful the next day.
Wow.
Oh, why did I do that? I shouldn't have helped that person. I wanted to help because I know it's the right thing, but now my back hurts, or now I'm feeling put off by it. So just listen to your heart, because I really think that we operate from here more than we know. Okay. Our minds are trained for the thought process, the language that we use. And that's why in my work, I also work very, very hard on retraining the language. Because a lot of times we think we're saying something, we're feeling something, but we're saying words that don't match that thought or that feeling. And I believe that the brain really doesn't get our emotions. The brain only hears what we're saying. And that's why I don't say things, oh, I'm stupid, right? Because I mean, even I just said it right now, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not. But the brain will hear those words and process it as such. So we need to be mindful of language in order for us to be able to create new thoughts, new actions, new habits, and rituals. Because I think very few of us create rituals. So the thing that I'd like to say, if someone is in the middle of it, right, you can start doing little things for yourself, no matter how little they are. And that's why I mentioned rituals. Rituals are the little things you do for yourself that allows you to take care of yourself. Now, I know not everyone can do all of the self-care, the 4 pillars of self-care that I'm about to talk about, but it can start small. For me was, okay, so if I am feeling depleted on a day, I can make popcorn and watch a movie, get myself all cuddled up with a blanket. Give yourself these little things in your own environment, whether it's to write a book or write in a journal or listen to a song and dance, things that make you happy. Connect with what it is that lights you up. Now, I have to disclose this, that when I was very depressed, I didn't have access to that place, right? It was hard to connect because I was down. It was like I had a cloud above my head and I really couldn't feel good. But there was a little bit of me, a part of me that believed that everything was going to be okay. I don't know, my faith perhaps, allowed me to go to that place of, I may not be there right now. So what do they say in the Christian words? There's a pastor by the name of Joyce Meyer that says, you may not be where you want to be, but you're not where you used to be. And so I kept remembering that everything that I was feeling for a reason, because if I was aware that it hurt, right, I knew that I needed to be in a place of love as well. There is always, where there is bad, there is good. There is always the other side of things. So I paid attention to that. Going into the self-care, I hope I answered your question. Did I answer your question? I hope.
Yeah, you're answering the questions, and it reminds me of, I think it's John Maxwell who says this: you have to help yourself. You have to work on yourself before you can go into even relationships.
Absolutely.
If you're not working on yourself, then you're going to always run into trouble.
Right.
So
Right.
But
Absolutely.
I have a question
self-
about that. When you're saying when someone's depleted, to me, I have witnessed when somebody's depleted, when they are in this survival mode, and when they are investing all their time in this self-care, and they know how to do self-care because it's just, and maybe it's not in a healthiest way, but it's survival mode because they feel so mistreated, abused emotionally, and lonely, etc., that they just are in this escape mode to self-care to survive because they feel so suffocated. They want breath, fresh air. And then they're still depleted because they don't feel fulfilled, they don't feel joy, and they're exhausted. They're still exhausted. I don't know. So I know of people like that right now, and that self-care is just survival mode because how horrible they feel
Right.
in
So
these
if you look at
dynamics.
yeah, if you look at self-care, and I'm going to give you the 4 pillars, and then you understand why you will shift with this notion. So yes, obviously self-care, there's a part of us that everybody knows, which is the physical self-care. You can get a massage, you can go shopping, you can go start to work out, which is something that involves a little more discipline, right? Or eat healthy, or you could do all the things that you're trying to connect with and still feel depleted. But here's the thing, self-care isn't just physical. Okay. So the second pillar is choice. When you exercise choice, you're giving yourself permission to choose better. And that's when I say insert the help. The coach, some people need a coach, some people need a therapist, some have to go on medication, but you have to figure out what it is that you need to make the choice. Okay, I'm going to make a conscious decision to take care of myself. I am whatever it takes. If it's a coach, it's because I need strategies. If it's a therapist, I just need to talk. And here why it's so important. Most of us choose to talk to people that are not equipped to help us, you see? And then the talking, which should be constructive, right? It should be an inventory of what's going on so you can go to the next step. But if you're telling your best friend, which bless the best friends, they love us, but you start to do what I call toxic venting. We don't want to do that because it doesn't move us. You're just saying the same thing. You start ruminating over it and repeating things, and there's no solution. Now you're just complaining. Pretty soon it becomes nagging. And before you know, your friend will start resenting you
Mhm.
because
And
it's a
and
lot for a person to take. It's a
even
lot
if
for a
that
person
friend
to
is
take.
an expert that could help her, there's not that rapport or that set relationship where, hey, I'm not your friend right now. I'm going to be your coach or the expert who tell you for you to be accountable for it. There's not that. Even if the friend is prepared to help, if they're not looking at each other in that
Right.
hat or in that role, they're
Absolutely.
not. Yes, and there's the resentment. You're right.
So hence the choice and the decision to give yourself permission to be assisted by someone who's equipped. The third one would be self-preservation. Now, most people have problem with this. Self-preservation over any type of reconciliation, which means that you would be okay to say no to something if it's not aligning with you. You start to put yourself first before anything or anyone else. And it's not from a selfish place. It's from the place that says, I am in relationship with myself. I'm going to take care of me now. It's my turn to take care of me. And sometimes it's so not clear. People who love you, who say, hey, we're going out. Let's say you're trying to write a book, right? You're trying to do something wonderful and constructive, and or you're trying to take care of yourself. You're in the process of healing and you just want to stay away from negative behavior or things that are not going to serve you, and your friends are calling, let's go out to the bar and drink, and let's go out and stay out all night, come on, live a little. The next day you're going to feel terrible. That's not good for you. You're trying to heal. You're not trying to drown in the things that are not serving you. At that point you say, you know what, self-preservation over honoring my friends. The moment they want me to go, and they love me, but you know what, guys, I'm good today. I have to get up early tomorrow, and it's okay to say no. We need to make this okay. We can't be uncomfortable by saying no. And saying no doesn't mean you're going to yell or fight with people. You can honor, oh, that's amazing, I'm so happy for you guys, but I'm going to pass it today, and be okay with that. Setting healthy boundaries is a part of self-preservation. A lot of times when I ask my clients, what is your role in your pain? So if you went out with your friends and the next day you're completely out of sorts because you shouldn't have gone out because you knew you had to get up early and follow these new disciplines that you set for yourself, what is your role in your pain? Well, I didn't say no. I should have said no. It's like, did you respect your own boundaries? Did you have any boundaries? So before we start blaming situations and other people, let's do a check. let's check what boundaries do we have in place. I oftentimes will say to my clients, one of your affirmations for the next week is, I can set healthy boundaries. A lot of people are afraid of that. And we need to accept that we can and not expect that the world is going to be, we're going to be at the mercy of other people. Other people don't get to tell you what to do with your life. You do.
Yeah, and it's
Let
interesting that you said that, Dea. One thing that I've told clients before is schedule yourself self time. Schedule. I'm writing a book, so then you can just say, if it helps you, say, I'm busy. I'm sorry. I already have an appointment scheduled. You're not lying. That appointment's with you, and you don't have to explain it. But it helps you to get through those times until you can say no on your own.
I love that,
absolutely.
Tammy.
Absolutely. I love that as well. So the last one would be your support system, call it a village, a tribe. And a lot of times when I talk about that, people think that you're supposed to be within a group of 30 people. It's not. Your tribe can literally be one other person. You know, who is the person that resonates with you, that respects your boundaries, that will listen and understand, but also holds you accountable? It has to be someone who understands you enough, loves you enough, respects you enough, that will hold you accountable, especially when it's hardest, right? Because not everyone is open for that. And I think that the tribe could be your coach. Some people will have that and not have many friends because, a lot of times, remember, when we're healing, we're shifting into a space where whoever knew us won't know us. Okay. We become different when we are becoming whole, when we're in the process of healing. Maybe other people won't like us because that's not who they know and it's not familiar to them, this new person. Unlearning some things involves forgetting some people. Not everybody gets to come with you in this new place that you are. Because remember, they say, what does it say? Misery loves company.
Yeah.
When you start to heal and do better for yourself, it will highlight the people's lack. It will highlight their lack of courage. It will highlight their lack of self love. Or actually, shouldn't say it like that. The lack of, yeah, I guess self love. Yeah, it would be self love. Interestingly enough, because I spoke about the core values, and we're talking core values in terms of, loyalty, honesty, compassion, kindness. There are many core values, including career and all things that allow us to be a part of the world. And it's the compass in which, that helps us define what direction to go. We don't think about them. So if somebody drops a wallet and your core value is honesty, you don't think, I better be honest. No, you just automatically will bend down, pick up the wallet and say, hey, you dropped your wallet, right? But before we talk about those core values, I always like to point out that at the very top, that's the umbrella of it all, is self-love. We can't love anyone else until we love ourselves. Under that umbrella of self-love sits self-discipline, self-awareness, self-expression, and self-respect. If we have those in check, everything else will flow. So I always say, find you, and everything else will follow. And if you take care of yourself and if you're committed to your healing, you look at life from a place of, you're not trying to get someone else to make you happy. You make you happy. If you're happy, whole, and healthy, and you have a wonderful partner, wonderful. But guess what? Not everybody's going to get a partner. Not everyone will end up with someone, but you still be happy, whole, and healthy.
So
And
I have
that's
a question for you. So what do you tell those that just blame everybody else for all of their problems? They never want to take ownership. And we see that a lot anymore. And I don't understand why, but in ways, but you hear that all the time, I mean, I know that you need to take ownership of your stuff, but what do you say about it? So.
well, the number one thing I'll say that came to mind is those people probably aren't working with me. Because people who blame everybody, it's less likely that they would look for help outside of themselves. They are their own gods. They don't have any higher power. Everything is everybody else's fault and they can't see it. They just can't see it. And so to me, it's a kind of a handicap, emotional handicap, right? So, but how I would address that, if you are someone who deals with someone like that, it's a 3-letter word, run.
Yeah, I love
Exactly.
it.
Totally
Run
agree.
away, run away.
Not away.
And they place themselves as victims, and I'm tired of that. I'm like, come on, I'm
Right.
looking for victors in my life. Victors or Victoria. So
Yeah.
we have a question, and time goes by so fast when we're having fun. This has been amazing, Coach Déa. And people are here engaged. Ike, she's saying that, love that, RUN shows she's going to follow suit. She's inviting more people here. Yes. Welcome, welcome. If you're just joining in right now, we are happy to have you here. And unlocking freedom in nature and art. So Tammy is the artist, and we both love nature. I love the concept of freedom, and I think you too, Coach Dea. How do you harness nature in your life? Do you have any experience with all this self-care and all these steps in also implementing or incorporating the outdoors in your life? And what can you tell others about the importance of nature?
There are two things that I do. I like sitting in the sun, light.
Hmm.
And the other thing is I have a love story with the moon. So when I was little, I was told by my mom that we were outside looking at the moon and it started to rain. The clouds covered the moon and I started crying. She says, "What's the matter?" I said, "Poor moon, it's getting all wet." So it started this love story with the moon. And so my mom and I started moon watching when I was 4 years old. My mom
Oh,
passed away when she was 57, which is a little bit younger than I am now. And
Wow.
I kept that as a part of my life. It's not uncommon for me to see the moon and tell my kids, let's get in the car and go to the parking lot over there to see, because I have a lot of trees where I live. Sometimes it's behind the trees. Let's go find the moon and we'll sit. And they're like, "You're so weird. I don't know anybody who
I
takes car
love the
rides to
moon
watch the
too.
moon."
I do.
I
Yeah.
recently was in Arizona and my daughter says, "Have you ever watched a moonrise?" And I said, "No." So we were in the mountains. I was watching the sunset. And as soon as the sun went down behind these mountains, I mean, I took my breath away because I thought, here I am with my daughter and my grandson, and it was like my mom was there, you know. So it's not uncommon for me to uh, just have this incredible feeling of love. I'm really connected with it because of my mom. And so, and it's not uncommon that on the hardest days, I've walked outside, literally not realized it was a full moon, and then see the moon and think, oh, my mom is here. And I also have in all of our bedrooms, there's a night light that's on the wall. It's a moon. It's called the moon in my room. And my kids have had it since they're little because I felt like that was the way that my mom was watching over them and me and myself. So I do those two practices. I also like putting my feet on the grass
Hmm.
um, every now and then. But as someone who was born and raised in Brazil, I'm not the outdoor type of person. If you say, "Do you want to go camping?" I would stay at a hotel. I like the hotel better. But I do love nature. But I am scared of a lot of things outside, you know. So where I live, we have deer, we have foxes, and we have all kinds of animals. So I'm a little nervous about being outside. If I come home at night and I just run in the house, so I'm not like the outdoor type of person who like. I mean, I did go hiking when I was in Arizona. My daughter and I went around the mountain. I can do things outdoor, but it's not my first go-to outside of loving the moon.
Mhm.
So
But
it
I think
sounds like you use, that's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love the moon, as we had talked and discussed, how I was telling you about the northern lights and stuff that I get to see occasionally. But it sounds like you use the arts, your singing and those different things
Dancing, yeah.
for
dancing as well.
your,
Yes,
stress and different things. Can you tell us a
absolutely.
little bit about how you use those?
Yes, so actually I grew up in the arts all my life. So I was a dancer and I was also performing and singing. Then I started writing Christian music, and it wasn't something that I planned actually. The pastor, I was doing a marriage counseling with this pastor, and she said, "Why don't you write Christian music?" And I said, "I haven't really been called to do it." And she goes, "Well, how do you know you're called to do it? Why don't you just write it?" I said, "I can't. I just can't." And she didn't understand what that meant. Neither did I at the time. Until one night, I literally heard somebody playing the piano. And I thought, who's up at this late at night? I came out into my living room. No one was out here. I went back to bed and I still kept hearing the music and the sounds and the words. And then it occurred to me that I was hearing the music. So I wrote it down, and I could barely play the piano at the time. And I still not a pianist by all means, but I can compose music just in my very limited part of the piano. And I was able to put this song together. and then later wrote 15 or 14 more songs and recorded one of them called You Lift Me Up, that is all on all music platforms. And it
I've
just
heard that
became a way of
song. That's a
expression.
beautiful song.
It became a way of expression for me. You know, it wasn't something that I did out of, oh, I want to make a career out of this. I literally just was interested in listening to what was it that God was trying to tell me. And interestingly enough, a couple of years before I almost died of COVID, I wrote a song called When I Take My Last Breath. And that song was about the commitment to live life in the way that I was meant to live. And it was about living life to its fullest without regrets, you know, just wanting to live the life that God designed for me. And so 2 years later, when I almost died and I went back to play that song when I could finally take a breath, you know, it meant something to me. It meant something different. I never thought that I was going to minister to myself with a song that I had written. And at the time, the reason why I wrote it, it was because I was reading a book about palliative care. And it was an experience of a nurse in Australia by the name of um, gosh, I forgot her name right now. It'll come to me because I want to give her the credit for the book. It's called A Little Bridge to Heaven by Tracy. Oh gosh, I can't think of her last name. I'm going to have to look it up.
Is she the
But
same one that wrote the five regrets of the dying?
no,
Oh,
no.
okay. Okay.
She was a palliative care specialist,
Mm-hmm.
and she worked in Australia, and she wrote a book about her experiences called A Little Bridge to Heaven. That book had me in tears, just understanding what happened in the final days, final hours, final weeks before a person passes. There were a lot of experiences. And I thought, you know, if we knew, many of them had regrets of not having reconnected with family members. And it was so sad to me. And I thought, you know, if we only knew what's going to happen when that time arrives, right? When that time arrives, you know, I felt that I just wanted to walk into Jesus's arms and not have regrets, not have any burdens, not have anything over me. And so that required to live a life in a certain way. And it made me think of how intentional we need to be. Earlier in the podcast, I wrote, right? But what if we had a role in our peace? Right? A role in our pain sometimes is from the subconscious. It happens because we've been traumatized in relationships before, or maybe our brain didn't prepare us for relationships. Everybody said, get married, but they didn't understand there was a wedding, then there was marriage. And so we didn't have the tools to process that. But our role in our peace is intentional. We can make decisions. We can declare and decree victory over ourselves. We can feel deserving of abundance because I think a lot of people have trouble with that. You know, feeling like a worthy recipient, knowing that we deserve the best, but also doing. I just can't. And she didn't understand that. You know, doing our best, right? So I think those things are extremely important. And so, yeah. So that's what I would say. I kind of lost my train
Aw.
of thought, but I guess it was that.
So thank you so much. So no, that's an amazing. So yeah. Any last tips for our audience?
Um, You know, I tell people that it's not, for some people, it's really hard to give themselves permissions to love themselves, right? It's really hard. People don't come to terms with that. I think it's a very new conversation. If you look at the history, right? We didn't really think about those things. I would say back to even 35, 40 years ago. My oldest daughter is 36 years old. And I remember around the time that she was born, it was the first time you heard conversations that dads could stay at work at home when the wives had the baby. It was the first time they started talking about the parents being involved in the birth and the father cutting the umbilical cord. And all of the conversations about self-care, paying attention to yourself. I think that we need to look at the season we're in, right? And how those seasons are aligned with some of our core values. Core value that may be something that didn't serve you back when, for me, was something so silly. Like self-care for me was impossible when my babies were little. I never allowed myself to do it because I thought, I'm abandoning my kids to go get my nails done. Well, fast forward to now, that same manicure, same place is now a point of connection between me and my daughter. We make a day of it. We have lunch and it's beautiful. So we can shift in time. So just to give yourself grace throughout this process. Okay, life is not easy. We're experiencing life in real time. And even when you don't know what to do, even if you don't have a coach, look for the videos. Look, there's a lot of resources online, and there are a lot of people talking about good things. Look for the helpers, as Roma Downey says. Look for the helpers. They're everywhere. Okay. It's really important for us to give ourselves grace as we navigate life, because life definitely is to be lived in a way that we're learning from it. It's not about us knowing everything and having all the coordinates. It's about saying, you know what? I'm open. I'm open to receiving more, knowing more, learning more. Find you, and everything else will follow.
Wonderful. Thank you, Coach Day. Just knowing that you have turned your pain into power and your passion is very evident with everything you've shared today. Thank you so much for all of those insights and that wisdom. Understanding too that, like Coach Dea says, give yourself permission to unlearn some things that are paradigms, that are limiting beliefs and thought processing patterns, to change the script, to give yourself, I mean, we're only getting older, time's passing by, and it's enough, right? When you see yourself, and I think of your clients, I think of my clients, and I am happy when a client says enough is enough. The nonsense is enough. The self-neglect is enough. I'm ready for something new. And those are the people we're very eager to work with, right? Those are the people that want to make a difference in their life and want to unlearn the old and learn new things to make it better for themselves. Because when we change that script and flip the tortilla or the pancake, whatever it is, it's for the better. And then as you change that person in the mirror, right, you influence and impact others, and life is more meaningful. You can experience more joy and fulfillment, however that looks like, because you don't go to bed thinking, I want more joy and fulfillment. No, you think, how can I lose weight? How can I improve my relationships? And that is when it concretizes, right? When it solidifies, and in turn, it turns into results, right? You understand now, like, what is it to get a pedicure and a manicure? Is quality time with your daughter, or it would have been quality time with yourself, recovery for yourself when you were being a mom, but you realize that that is important, and now you're doing that to yourself. You're giving yourself permission. You're worth it. You're worthy of it. You're deserving of it. So beautiful messages. Thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you for having me.
you're welcome. We want to remind you all in the audience to share this, to understand that part of self-care too is giving yourself permission to travel. Come with us, join us in Barbados. Coach Dea, if you want to come with us to Barbados.
I would love to. I'm
Yes,
excited.
come with us.
To know more about that. I need to more about the retreat. I'm going to ask you guys some questions.
Very good. Well, we're going to stop the live stream. If anybody has, Tammy, you have anything else to say to the audience?
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it. Make sure you share and like. Well, actually, don't just like, love. That helps us out even more. And we appreciate when you invite others to join us. You may know somebody that needs to be here, or you may know other speakers that you want to have on. But we appreciate you. If you have any questions about our retreats or courses, just go to unlockingfreedominnature.com. So thank you so much, Dea. It's been such an honor having you here, and we love you. So thanks, everyone.
We appreciate Ike. She invited other people. Olivia was here too. So thanks for watching live and interacting.
Yes.
And it's just
Thank
amazing.
you.
We feel your support.
It's a brand new day.